And as IPSF Pharmacy Education Committee, we are taking actions to participate in this initiative. For this purpose, today we have 6 representatives with us from 3 different regions: Asian Pacific region, Pan American region, and the Eastern Mediterranean region. From Asian Pacific region, there will be Miss Vivian Liu from Australia and Miss Azriana Shah from Malaysia. From Pan American region, there will be Melissa Kiley from Canada and Mr. Hugo Franco Napan Rodriguez from Peru. From the Eastern Mediterranean region, there will be Mr. Enes Hawar from Iraq and Ms. Besant Al-Khatam from Qatar. And Ms. Joanna Estes, the IPSF internship coordinator, will be the note taker of the session. Also, we have IPSF executive committee member with us, Mr. Joe, the president, and Mr. Younes Talali, the chairperson of external relations. And finally, our facilitator is Ms. Nilhan Uzman, lead for the education policy and implementation at FRP. So before giving the floor to our facilitator, I would like to show you an introduction video, and after that, I would like to make a short presentation. Can you? Okay, thank you. So UNESCO's Futures of Education initiative is an ambitious attempt to rethink education and help shape the future. The initiative is catalyzing a global debate on how education, learning, and knowledge need to be imagined in a world of increasing complexity, uncertainty, and precarity. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the initiative aims to generate an agenda for global debate and action on futures of education, learning, and knowledge in a world that is increasingly complex, uncertain, and precarious. This will include the release of a global report in 2021 to share a forward-looking vision, education, and learning, and to serve as an agenda for policy dialogue and action at multiple levels. The report will build on a humanistic approach to education laid out in previous UNESCO reports. The first of these reports, Learning to Be, the role of education today and tomorrow, which was held in 1972, already warned of the risks of inequalities, privation, and suffering, and emphasized the need for the continued expansion of the education and for lifelong learning. This was followed by the 1996 Learning, the treasure within the report that proposed an integrated vision of education around the four pillars: learning to be, learning to know, learning to do, and learning to live together in a lifelong perspective. More recently, the 2015 Rethinking Education Towards a Global Common Good report reframed their proposal of education as enhancing and sustaining the dignity and the capacity of the human person in relation to others and to nature. If you're wondering that what is different about this global report, and that is the process in which it will be developed. It will emerge from an inclusive process of consultation, debate, research, and engagement. The Director General of UNESCO has convened an independent international commission to work under the leadership of the President of Ethiopia, Her Excellency President Sahle Work Zewde, and lead the development of the global report on the futures of education. Next slide, please. The members of the Commission are top leaders from the roles of politics, academia, the arts, science, business, and education. Next slide, please. The Commission will carefully consider the inputs received through a broad, open consultative process that involves youth, educators, civil society, governments, business, and other stakeholders. The global consultation includes a series of online consultations as well as more targeted in-person focus group discussions and other modalities. The report of the International Commission will therefore emerge out of a range of work modalities that emphasize co-creation, a board participatory and partnership structure, the inclusion of diverse perspectives, and the absence of pre-specified conclusions. Next slide, please. So in this part, I would like to thank our representatives for their contribution, to our facilitator and our note taker for their efforts, to the executive committee for their help in this process, and to other participants who are watching us right now. Thank you. So if you have any questions, you can ask now, or you can ask at the question and answer time. I think there's no question, so I would like to give the floor to our facilitator. Nilhan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Merve. Thank you, Karima. Thank you, Younes. Thank you, Merve, for the opening. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are connecting us from. Welcome to our participants and observers from IPSF. Thank you for joining us today. Also, for the participants, let us know using the chat box which country and student association you are joining us from, so we'll know if it's a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening for you. I would also like to warmly welcome our panelists, whom I'll hand over to shortly in the Q&A. My name is Nilhan Uzman. I'm a pharmacist trained in Turkey. I'm the lead for education policy and implementation at FIP. Working closely with the global education community in our profession, including pharmacy educators, pharmacy schools, students, and young professionals. I'm also the lead for FIP UNESCO's partnership program called UniTwin, which is a platform for inter-university collaboration to advance pharmacy education. First of all, I'd like to congratulate IPSF in taking a leadership role in pharmacy to forecast the future of pharmacy and pharmaceutical science education in collaboration with a major global organization focusing on science and education, the UNESCO. With these focus group discussions, we'll compile diverse opinions, views on pharmacy education in the COVID-19 world through our brilliant panelists from all around the world today. I would like to also thank Karima and Merve for their kind invitation and great organization of today's session. today's theme is the future of education, learning to become. UNESCO says knowledge and learning are humanity's great renewable resources for responding to challenges and investing in solutions. We all know that education is at the center of all transformations. And how do we leverage this power in our hands for our profession? How education and learning can enable us to become what we want to become. So our discussion will be around these themes today. Some of you may know FIP has launched the 5th Development Goals September this year. The 5th Development Goals are a key resource for transforming the pharmacy profession over the next decade, globally, regionally, and nationally. They align with FIP's mission to support global health by enabling the advancement of pharmaceutical practice, science, and education, and they are set to transform pharmacy in alignment with wider global imperatives, such as United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So IPSF and UNESCO's collaboration through the Futures of Education initiative couldn't be more timely, so that we will implement and achieve these 5th development goals together. You are the future of our profession. FIP provides you the goals. So we hope to gain great insights from today to identify how we would like to transform our profession together through and within education. For the discussion today, we have 3 principles. So we'll co-create solutions together. We'll have diverse opinions and we'll try to think out of the box. As you watch from UNESCO's video, we are thinking about 2050 now. So it's in 30 years, but suddenly it will come. So we will ensure all the perspectives and viewpoints are included. Today's discussion, we have a great diversity. So I celebrate that. And we'll also try to ensure this is a highly interactive session. Let's start our conversation to forecast the future that we would like to be in. I'll also start the discussion with one of my favorite quotes: let's be the change we want to see in the world. So before I start, I also would like to ask today's note taker, Joanna, to introduce herself. Thank you, Joanna, for supporting us as documenting today's discussion.
Thank you, Nilhan. Hello, everyone. I'm Joana Esteves, a 5th-year student of Pharmaceutical Science Master degree in Portugal, and I am serving as IPSF Internship Coordinator and today as note-taker of this discussion. I'm really happy to be joining you and gathering your ideas and different perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Welcome. So let's start our discussion. Our first question reads, to make a comparison between education before versus after COVID-19. Well, we are still in COVID-19. How did universities tackle the boundaries in providing education during quarantine and closure? And what were the actions taken, the reformations done to provide education during COVID-19? So there has been some emergency actions from universities, but after some learnings, things must have evolved in your countries. So I'll ask, how did it go for you in your country? I'll go one by one, and I'll ask everyone to first introduce themselves in the first question, and then share his or her answer. And I'm gonna start with Vivian from Australia. Vivian, please introduce yourself and then let us know your experience.
Hi, Nilhan. Thank you for inviting me to speak. So my name is Vivian Liu. I'm a 3rd-year pharmacy student studying at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia. I'm also the pharmacy education coordinator of the IPSF APRO region. So before the COVID-19 pandemic in Australia, university workshops and lectures were held in person, requiring attendance, with most lectures having an optional type of attendance. However, due to COVID-19 restrictions, all classes have moved online, and students in years 1 to 4 were unable to attend in-person classes, meaning that experimental classes and laboratory workshops were were held off or even postponed to a later date. So students were not able to learn those materials during that time. Other than this, all university content otherwise has moved online in the form of website notes. Workshops were held by Zoom, and textbook references and classes were also held on Zoom. So that was the learning technique established in Australia during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vian. This was a common approach across many universities, so we'll see probably from your other colleagues as well. These were the most common actions taken. So thanks for sharing your experience. I'll continue with Azrina.
Hello, thank you very much, Nilhan. Hello, everyone. My name is Azrina, and I'm from Malaysia. I'm a final year student right now, and I'm also the contact person of My PSA Malaysia. It's very nice to meet all of you. So to answer this question, before COVID-19, classes were held face-to-face, and COVID-19 has shown many vulnerabilities in education across the globe, including Malaysia. And due to high infection rate of COVID-19, the Malaysian government imposed a movement control order on the 18th of March this year. And many universities were unprepared for a massive shift from classroom learning to online learning. So the education sector in Malaysia has opted for the approach of online learning with technology and devices as a mediator of communication to replace face-to-face learning. And numerous applications for education purposes have been introduced as a solution for these matters, such as Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and also Zoom. Lecturers have tried to come up with more engaging learning styles, which are more interactive, to pique the students' interest and ensure everyone is focused. And examinations were shifted online, and lab work was difficult or even impossible during the emergency distance learning conditions due to COVID-19. Many lecturers replaced traditional labs with simulations. And final year students who require a lab for scientific research may use the university lab with permission from the lecturer in charge, as well as the police on duty, once the movement control order was eased a little bit. And of course, clear SOPs such as temperature checking and social distancing were followed. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Azrina. I think throughout this discussion, we'll explore more vulnerabilities or disparities in education. They were more overtly masked in many countries. And also it was interesting to hear that despite the restrictions, there was a possibility to visit the labs under the certain requirements. So thanks for sharing that. And now I'll continue with Hugo from Peru. Hugo, would you like to introduce yourself and then let us know your experience?
Hello, everybody. My name is Hugo Napam. I am from APFI Peru. I am the actual CEO of my association. Before the pandemic hit the world, education in university, as we know, was face-to-face. Nowadays, we have the virtual classes in most of our universities. At first, it was an adaptation that took time for students and also for teachers that have to get accustomed to this new technology, to this new way of learning, right? So it was a very challenging because some students didn't have the facilities to the internet, or there were very far from the cities. So some universities start giving some devices like tablets or some microchips to get that connections to the classes. Most universities start using Google Meet, Zoom, or Blackboard. Now we are getting that costume to that new way to learning. That's all I have to share with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. I think it was important to hear that you mentioned also it was an adaptation period for you, but also for your lecturers and for your school as well. Everybody has their own challenge. So it's good to recognize those challenges as well. And I guess throughout the discussion, we'll discuss more about access to education and technology, like access to online education and technology. And we'll observe some situation about students that are more in the rural areas in countries. So thanks for pointing that out. Now I'm going to continue with Melissa, and I'll get to know Melissa and Canada's experience.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Kiley. I'm a fourth-year pharmacy student at Memorial University of Newfoundland in Canada. I'm also currently the Capsie Student Exchange Officer for this year. So similar to what others have mentioned, in Canada, we followed a traditional approach to education prior to COVID-19, in that we had in-person labs and classes where you have lectures with your classmates. Unfortunately, in March, all universities in Canada were required to close, so that was a big change for us. Most professors quickly moved all of our classes and required activities to an online format, either through pre-recorded lectures that we could watch on our own time, or through live lectures using platforms such as WebEx and Zoom. Many labs were also delivered via Zoom and were modified to fit an online platform the best that they could, either through simulations or kind of watching videos. However, things that could not be delivered remotely were canceled or postponed to be completed in a later time. In terms of our exams and assessments, they were also moved to an online format, some being open book and assignment based, and others being proctored either by professors or computerized proctoring systems. And in order to minimize the academic impact on students due to the pandemic, many professors in Canada also gave the option of pass-fail grading for our final grades. And that would be instead of numerical or letter grades, which was really good for students during this time, as it was such uncertain times, and it really gave a sense of relief. And basically, these were the main changes that we experienced with regards to education in Canada after the quarantine. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I think it's nice to hear that your lecturers, your professors provide you with some flexibility on the assessments. There must be, mutual understanding from students to professors and professors to students as well. So good to see this kind of approaches. So I'm gonna continue with Enes, and now we will go to Iraq. Enes, would you like to introduce yourself and your experience?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. This is Enes Hawar, a third-year pharmacy student in Haller Medical University from Iraq, and also I'm president of the Kurdistan Pharmaceutical Students Association, KPSA, member association in IMRO. So first of all, thank you for your efforts for doing this session, and I hope all the best for you. Regarding the question talking about my university, before the pandemic, we were used to have like not that good online system and Moodle system, and we had so many troubles and issues using the Moodle system. But after the pandemic came, and we needed to have like a better online system to use them and to get the lectures from the teachers and our doctors. So the university administration decided to develop the online system, and they worked on the system, and the system was so much better after the pandemic. So I can say that the result of the pandemic was so good for our university and most of the universities in Iraq, as the administration of the universities decided to like review their online systems and to take care of them, because before the pandemic we haven't been used to take the lectures online. We were only used to take them in person, but as the pandemic came, they were all online, and we used to take them online. So I can say that it was a good result, and now we can use our online systems and use the Moodle to get the lectures without any problem. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Enes. Good to hear some also positive impact. I mean, there are some challenges, but I think this was a period where everybody has gone through a digital transformation, and it has positive impacts. Probably over time, there will be some efficiency, increased efficiency in education through technological solutions, where we have to tackle the practical side of learning pharmacy. So that's going to remain a question mark, or maybe we'll get some solutions today. So for the final respondent of the question one, we'll go to Basant and hear Qatar's experience.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Basant, a recent graduate, or we can call it a pandemic graduate, representing Qatar here. I'm the PE Pharmacy Education Coordinator in Emru region. So for the Qatari experiment before the pandemic, we had the same experiment that everyone had. I would add just one thing, that we had we were blessed with something called ECHO, which is the recorded lectures. So we had a database with all the lectures from the past years. When the lockdown happened in the 9th of March in 2020, it came like a sudden in the mid of a week. So we took some time to adjust, but by the second week, we can say that we had different approach. So for classrooms, I think like all of us, it was video conference lectures. Most of them were through Blackboard, which is the official website for our college. We used for exam the open book exam, the assignment, and some courses were transformed to a research-based courses. For the practical lectures, or the practical part, it has two parts. The clinical part was done through video conferencing, counseling patients, and all the clinical skills were done through video conference. For the pharmaceutical, it was a little bit hard to do the lab through virtually. So we used the professor used to conduct the experiment, and the students watch it online. One thing that suffered a lot, and I think a couple mentioned it, is the graduation project for some of the students. So some of the graduation project, we were not allowed to visit the university by any means. So most of them were either stopped abruptly at the port where it's on March, and we wrote the report on it, and some of it was postponed until further notice. What's noteworthy to mention here in the Qatari experiment, and what I liked about what happened, is that when the pandemic hit us and we had like the clash, and everyone, as you said, the instructors and the students, they are not aware of what to do. We had a group meeting between student representatives and instructors and the administration to decide on the next step. So there was an integration of the students in the decision making, which helped us a lot to understand and be at least considerate of what we are going through, everyone, because it was hard on everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Basant. I think it must have a significant impact on engaging students in the process, because this was a co-creation moment where a common solution needs to be found. So also you mentioned that there were recorded lectures that have helped the adaptation. So I think now we will be probably more ready for the things that we don't know that is coming. So everybody will be probably more prepared in the next periods. So thank you for these great answers. You have common issues, you have common solutions. At this point, I would like to ask all the panelists if you have any reflections you want to share with the other panelists, or anything that you find interesting that can be applied in your university, or any solution you want to suggest to your fellow panelists. This is a moment to share as a mini panel of the first question. So is there anything that any panelist would like to mention? Okay,
Hi there.
so
I just had something to add.
yeah, please go ahead.
Many of our professors actually asked our classes how we would like to have certain types of information delivered. For example, whether it be a live lecture or a recorded lecture, certain topics might have benefited from certain ways. So that like two-way communication with our professors was really helpful.
Great, thanks for sharing. I think this should be a standard way, even though sometimes it might be challenging to do such engagements in emergency situations, but on the long run, this is going to be the most effective. So engaging students in the processes always help. Okay, so thank you very much for your great answers. We'll continue with our next question. And the next question is a bit more about access to education and opportunities. So we'll discuss how COVID-19 affected the number of available training opportunities online and offline, in person. And there was a different approach in, your daily routine when pandemic started. So have you or your students used this period effectively to invest in yourself, or you find it challenging because of the situation itself? So we'll hear a bit more, on the professional side of things, but also share your personal experience with us, how it worked for you and your students. And for this question, I'm gonna start with Ugo.
Okay, at the beginning, there were some courses that couldn't be taken, as well as the pre-professional practices that affect many students who were in the last year of their studies. They couldn't have the opportunity to start their practices. Currently, there was a major boom in webinars where students have the opportunity to attend, such a national congress or many other webinars that could be taken. So I noticed that a lot of students use this time to attend to these webinars and improve their knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think, like Basan said, there were pandemic graduates of this year. I think the first year students and last year students were the ones that were mostly affected, but of course everyone had their share. And great to see there were increased accessibility to students with increased online opportunities. So thanks for sharing that. And then we'll continue with Melissa.
Thank you. So due to the social distancing requirements and the risk of transmission of COVID-19, most shadowing opportunities in hospital and community pharmacy are currently not allowed. With regards to required rotations and placements for students, when the closure first happened, most placements were canceled, which negatively impacted pharmacy students hoping to gain experience in the workforce. And this was especially an issue for those nearing graduation. In Canada, in order to become a licensed pharmacist, you must write and pass the Pharmacy Examining Boards of Canada. And due to COVID-19, the licensing exam was postponed until August and November. Therefore, recent pharmacy graduates lost out on about 6 months of work as a pharmacist. As the pandemic went on, student placements did resume, but were modified. For example, my first hospital placement was delivered partially online. Therefore, I missed out on half of my placement doing like hands-on activities, and the rest of my classmates as well. That being said, I do believe that many students did take the time to invest in themselves and their education by helping out more in community pharmacy specifically, such as through part-time or full-time work outside of pharmacy curriculum. Community pharmacies in Canada in April and May, in the time the pandemic was first progressing, were busier than they've ever been. But due to the closure, students had more free time from their classes and less commitments. So they were able to help out more in community pharmacy and were able to continue to learn and work during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. I think we'll observe as we go through the questions, lack of practical experience and how it relates to becoming a pharmacist. So that's going to be probably a major question mark. Will all educators and the education community will tackle. For example, are we going to follow up with these graduates of 2020 and perhaps 2021 to pursue further follow-up education in the continuous education schemes? And great to hear students have volunteered in the context of combating the pandemic. So thanks for sharing that. I'll continue with Enes now.
Okay, so during the quarantine period, most of the students, I think most of them could take the professional development courses and the books, especially about their topics and lectures. I think that they could use this period effectively to study some sources and get some sources out of the lectures. And about the training opportunities, actually we had some workshops and webinars done online, either by the university or by the pharmaceutical or medical associations here. And I can say that the number of the online workshops and meetings were rising and increasing during this period. So they could get the courses and workshops a lot easier because they haven't had to go to the place. It was just held online. So overall, I can say that it was a good time for the students, besides of doing the entertain things, but I think that it was a good time for improving themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Enes. Good to see some kind of resilience there or enthusiasm there, despite the challenges that students take time to, professionally, personally develop themselves. And of course, the online opportunities created, access to more opportunities. Like, for example, now we can connect. Maybe we couldn't have done this in person. So these are great opportunities. Basant, I'll continue with you.
Yes, for Qatar, we have been lucky as a senior students that we are done with our rotation. So the senior students in Qatar finished the rotation in December and only are left with their curriculum-based subjects. But the problem was with the PharmD students who were still in the rotation. PharmD students continue the next, I think, 4 or 5 months of their rotations mainly online. They used to follow up their patients online and report to their preceptor and had a one-to-one meetings every day with their preceptor. After, in summer, there should have been the 2nd and 3rd year pharmacy student training session month, but due to the new, we still novel and don't know what's happening, it was postponed, and they are currently doing it in the winter break with a more now health measures and protective measures being done, since we kind of understood the situation a little bit. So they are now overcoming the time. I think the training for pharmacists is really essential. It was one of the greatly affected parts of the pharmacy education during this session. For other kind of training that's like soft skills and all the stuff that we need and the college offered to us, it was still happening. We had it through online webinars, and it was excessive and more accessible, and because we had time and it was easier to do a webinar. So in that part, I think it was better than the offline ones.
Great, thank you very much. I think having some learnings, and now there was a period where if we would have this conversation a couple of months ago, I think the conversation would be different. But now there are some learnings, and good to see these are applied. So this can also give some influence to fellow panelists and participants. And great to hear there were opportunities, but I'm also going to challenge everyone during the panel to ask whether, because you mentioned there were excessive amount of online opportunities, So how you managed your time? We'll also discuss that as well. What was that? You know, there are more opportunities, but some of the colleagues in the previous panelists, they mentioned they were paralyzed a little bit in the excess amount of opportunities. So we can discuss that part as well. So thank you, Vasant. Then I'll continue with Vivian.
Thank you, Nilhan. So students from years 1 to 4 pharmacy usually have mandatory developmental placements at community and hospital pharmacy sites. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, all placements were postponed and held off until a further date. And so students were unable to practice or apply the skill-based learning at their sites. Mm-hmm. However, this mainly affected students in their intern year, which is, I guess, the 5th year, where students are studying and working for their pharmacy registration. So many pharmacies experienced an overflow of patients during this time, requiring intern students, whom around 90 to 95% do their intern year at community pharmacies, to overwork themselves and stretch their hours longer, leaving them less time to study for the upcoming intern written and oral examinations. Intern workshops were also held off and moved online in the form of lectures and workshops, and this is quite difficult for interns to move to an online learning platform, as some of the intern year skills are actually gained through in-person learning, and with the oral examination being a big component, it does test to a certain standard your emotional intelligence and how quick you are, I guess, at answering questions. During this period, we were seeing, so that made it difficult for intern students specifically. However, during this period, we were seeing many pharmacy and pharmaceutical student organizations hosting online events especially concerning mental health and online sporting activities, and there was a high level of attendance, correlating to show how some students were able to invest in their own personal interests and hobbies during such a disadvantageous time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vivian. I think now that this was mentioned several times, I think the students have been through the pandemic, especially the ones that mostly affected because of the practical side of pharmacy, needs to be followed up. I think when even you get into the practice, I think there should be a special treatment for this group to ensure, they kind of complete what has been missing. So there will be probably these kind of approaches in the future. Also, thanks for mentioning the mental health part. That's why I mean that was actually the part of the challenge I wanted to introduce. I think it was a period where there was issues around mental health resilience to everyone, for example, including me. So it's good to hear there were some activities around, and I think this should be done by everyone, every association, to support each other in solidarity. So I'll continue with Azrina for the last panelist of this question.
Thank you, Nilhan. So in Malaysia, some companies allowed internships, which were mostly made virtual, so students had to work from home. And after all, it's cheaper to hire interns. Mm-hmm. But a lot of companies also delayed hiring interns, not only because of the economic challenges, but also over concerns that parents were discouraging their children from taking up jobs for fear of COVID-19. And overall, the COVID-19 pandemic has lowered fresh graduates' employability rate. This recession resulted in delayed provisionally registered pharmacist intakes in both government and private sectors in Malaysia. And earlier this year, the Malaysian Pharmaceutical Society has appealed to the Malaysian Prime Minister to extend the contracts of over 3,000 government pharmacists who may have lost or will lose their jobs from April to December this year. And the wait to work after graduating could be up to 1 year this time around. And a lot of my friends are still waiting to get a job for their training opportunity. So a lot of fresh graduates found alternatives to make full use of their time. Some got temporary jobs in retail pharmacies or companies or even private hospitals, while others self-discovered and ventured into new hobbies and interests since they had more time on their hands now. And I agree with what you said earlier about mental health. A lot are still struggling with their mental health. It's been very challenging for everyone. So I suppose a lot of them are finding ways to cope with their mental health. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you introduced a new theme to the discussion, the workforce issues, the employment issues because of the economical challenges, but also societal challenges. So this is a topic worthwhile discussing, I think, because the opportunities that are available to pharmacists and the opportunities that existing workforce have, this will be a complex issue that probably applies to all sectors, not only pharmacy. So we'll have to do a lot of advocacy, and that was a great experience from Malaysia, very proactive approach. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, so really interesting insights from all of you. Do you have any comments, anything you would like to add, any question, or anything you, for example, you find inspiring that you said, I wish this could be done in my country? Is there anything you wanted to mention before we go to the next question?
I just want to comment on what you've said after me about the excessive training sessions and how it have done to all of us. I think when we're talking about it, we're not talking about the pharmacy education itself only, but how everything in the world was happening. So there was a common notion that you must use your time well. You have a lot of time on your hand, use it well. So everyone was trying to grasp all the courses that they can take and everything. And everyone, in addition to all the stress that we had the stress of how to use our time well, which I think gave us more of a bad effect rather than helping us.
Yeah. This is the I think mental health challenge part. We all been through that. We all subscribed to enroll to many courses. We all probably bought many books to read. At the same time, you have to keep your productivity because you have exams. I had projects to complete, so there are lots of empathy. I think everybody can understand. So I think it's really important to remember we are humans. We also have to preserve our health and well-being in order to cope with all of this. So if there's a learning I had, I think, for example, I invested my time in self-care activities also while I'm trying to improve myself. So that was a naive suggestion from me to everyone listening to this discussion today. So I'll continue with our third question, where we will deep dive into a little bit about your Pharmacy Student Association. So you all conduct very successful health education projects for your community, for your own students, and for the population you are serving too. So how this has been affected due to COVID-19? Did you have to cancel? Did you have to do something differently this time? And I also want to hear some examples about how you continued your projects in the context of COVID-19. For example, have you done anything about COVID-19 as your student association? So for this question, I'm gonna start with Enes.
Okay, regarding the effects of the pandemic on the associations, as I was one of the teams in the previous term of our association, KPSA, actually in the starting of this year, we planned to do so many things before the pandemic comes, but actually as the pandemic came, we canceled many events and many activities of our association. I can tell you many examples. For example, we planned to do a summit, which is an event for collecting the pharmacists and pharmacy students here in Kurdistan. But the pandemic didn't let us to do the summit, and we canceled it. Also, we had planned to do many activities on the public health days, like for the diabetic days and the other days on the several months, but we also canceled them because we couldn't go to the public places and give awareness to people there. Instead of that, we did some online workshops for our members. For example, on April, we have opened an online workshop for our members about the professional development, how can they improve themselves, and we invited some speakers here from the experienced and talented people, and we did the online workshop for our members, and we also invited our members to finish the course from WHO, which is a guideline for the COVID-19. So we did so many things to give awareness about COVID-19, especially to our members, so that they can know what they can do, and they can know what they need to know about the pandemic and the COVID-19. We actually did our best, and we did our activities mostly online, and we also did our meetings and general assemblies all online, which we previously planned to do them in person. And it was a new experience, and I can say that it was a good experience, talking about our general assembly, which was held by the participants of more than 100 people, and it was going well, and most of the things were arranged. We managed to do a good one, and I think that it was a good start for and a good solution for some situations that some associations cannot do in person and offline activities. It is a good solution and a good alternate because it is a lot easier, and it is more accessible for the members from different cities and different regions. So that was all.
Great. Thanks for sharing this experience. Also, congratulations to your association. I think you've done a lot to empower your own members, your students, so they can be mobilized to support. I think there is one point we can also explore a little bit further. Perhaps the other panelists can share some experience around that. We couldn't go to public to create awareness, so we couldn't engage with our community, our patients, so they shouldn't be left out. What do we do? Maybe they don't have access to online, they don't know how to use a phone, so what do we do for them? I think that's a major question mark we can all tackle today. And also on learning, managing your association at a virtual level, it's also an experience. I'm sure you all gain that, and that's a massive skill probably you're gonna need if you want to exist in the online world. So great learning. Thanks for sharing that. I'll continue with Basant.
Yeah. QFIS, Qatar Pharmacy Undergraduate Society, our association also suffered like everyone from the cancellation, especially just like you said, the public health events. So, but opportunities rises from crisis, and here we had some events that were mainly concerned with COVID, and I'd say they were more toward the pharmacy education portfolio. So we had a discussion, a webinar discussion. Melissa here was one of our panelists. It was a discussion around the globe for the pharmacy education during COVID time between Qatar, Pakistan, Palestine, Lebanon, and Canada. We heard a different perspective of how the pharmacy education was tackled during this time. Also, we had a position paper between EMRO countries, where we asked the students to write about ways to find solution on how to tackle pharmacy education in a better way during e-learning era. We had different sessions, webinars from our own preceptors who tried to give the students like a taste of the practical knowledge from home by doing webinars. Some of them were talking about current situation and some were other clinical topics. And most importantly, to support our mental health as we continued our social events. So we had our events, the gathering that we do in the college, we had them online, like the end of the year gathering to celebrate like thriving the year with our instructors and the whole team. We had time to reflect on what happened this year and how we tackled everything. So yes, for the public health, we left it mostly to the Ministry of Health. They had their own program for volunteering. So our students, our members, volunteered to help with the Ministry of Health because they already had a better plan for it. So we left it for them. Yeah, that's it.
Great. What else? Great things, great examples. I particularly liked the fact that you engaged with other countries during this period. So there was a sense of solidarity. I think that you are not alone. IPSF probably has been really successful with that connections. Also the social events. So not to forget, celebrate things. I mean, we still have 9 days, 10 days to go. I still don't say, I survived this year. I'm waiting for 10 more days. But I think it's worthwhile celebrating. I think everybody needs to celebrate that. Not just, being healthy, but, going through this period. So it's really important to celebrate. Together also with your instructors, really nice that they were engaged. And also we mentioned there is a lack of, engagement with the community and with our patients. So being a volunteer to support the governments and existing initiatives as students, this is really important because, they have the measures, they know what to do, they have access. So great to volunteer so we don't left anyone behind during this period. Thanks for the great examples. I'll continue with Vivian.
Thanks, Nilhan. So although all events had to be moved online, the events mostly generally received high attendance and were more successful during the COVID-19 period. We were seeing a high number of students attend online social events, which were held in the form of maybe trivias. There were also job networking nights and also social events. An example of a successful project during this time was the IPSF APRO's Mental Health Day article submission, where we saw over 50 submissions from the Asia Pacific region writing on the importance of mental health and also a reflection on their own societies during the COVID-19 pandemic. If anything, I believe that the COVID-19 pandemic actually allowed pharmacy students to get engaged more with their home-based pharmacy associations, and student associations also had a greater outreach with their projects during this time as more students had more time to participate. It also allowed associations to focus more on, online marketing techniques and their focus on the outreach as well, which will be even useful even when the pandemic is over to maintain an audience and maintain the participation of pharmacy students in events. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. I think, as you said, the online world definitely increased access to some opportunities where they have, of course, opportunities to join, log in, and interesting initiative on Mental Health Day. If it's not happened, I strongly encourage all the regional representatives to do a mental health activity in your own region. I think that's essential. It will be good to mirror that activity and learn from Vivian. So thanks for sharing that. I'll continue with Azrina.
Thank you, Nilhan. So during the previous mandate of my PSA, which was before October, Many events were cancelled, of course, and some were postponed. But we increased the postings of infographics such as difference between SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2, and scanning temperature using the forehead, because in Malaysia some people scan their temperatures using their hands. So I think it's very important to tell the public the importance of COVID-19 awareness as well. And then in March, we had a Let's Fight COVID-19 video campaign for awareness, and we received quite a lot of response. In August also, we had a COVID-19 awareness week, which gave a better understanding of how COVID-19 affected the pharmacy profession. We even had a sharing session by invited speakers on the effect of COVID-19 on pharmacy. And our national event, the National Pharmacy Research Competition, which is education related, was carried out online for the first time. And I suppose it was a huge success as well. And during the new mandate of MyPSA, which was from October onwards until now, we are planning a lot of online events. We are also increasing mental health advocacy, as it's very, very crucial to look after your mental health during these crucial times. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. I think these are great achievements and important activities to learn from. So thanks for sharing. And I think this is an opportunity also for all the panelists, participants to reach out to each other, learn from each other. You can simply ask how it worked for the other, and you can mirror the activity. So these are great opportunities. So congratulations for these activities. I think great achievements from Malaysia. And now I'm going to continue with Ugo.
Well, they mentioned we have also problems with the campaigns in public health, but we adapt the new form, like making infographics or video. I remember we made a video of the pharmacies that are involved in the hospital in this time. So it was an excellent video, was shared a lot, have a lot of impact. So we adapt new campaigns in a virtual way, and we are working in that. Also, our main event, our National Congress, we have to make like a pre-Congress, and we made it in a virtual way, and we invited a lot of persons around the world that have the opportunity to attend to this National Congress, but in the virtual way. So it was very grateful, and we can share a lot of knowledge with other students from other countries.
Congratulations. I think also it's worthwhile celebrating everyone. You have been through this period, and you find your own ways, and you just didn't miss the opportunity of a good crisis. So congratulations, having virtual campaigns, having your national congress. It's a virtual level, inviting internationals probably that couldn't come in normal times because of other commitments. This is a great leverage. So congratulations. So finally we'll go to Melissa.
Thank you. So my Pharmacy Student Association, Capsie, Canadian Association of Pharmacy Students and Interns, we continue to do our events in an online platform. That being said, March in Canada, which is when the pandemic began, is Pharmacist Awareness Month, and that is our biggest month of the year for raising public health campaigns and pharmacy education initiatives. So we had worked pretty much for a whole year to plan events for that month that unfortunately had to become canceled. But we were very resilient and tried to move these events into an online platform. For example, changing some of our events around so that they would be able to work online. One example that comes to mind is we did an infographic challenge about COVID-19, and students competed with each other to see who could make the best infographic to educate the public about COVID-19. We also participated in PPE drives because there was a shortage of PPE at the time, and we also participated in a number of other online initiatives. One other noteworthy activity I will mention that we had was our Capsie Wellness Weeks. And these have been done in the past, but I think this year they were more successful. And basically these weeks are aimed at opening the conversation about mental health, making sure we are providing opportunities for our members to be able to work on their mental health and help each other, help everyone. So basically, we had a series of wellness weeks where we did activities like an online Zoom yoga class via Zoom. We did a baking tutorial, and we also did like an online games night. So this was also, I think, better received than previous years because students were wanting to take care of their mental health more so this year because of all the uncertainties that's going on. So I think we're very resilient and able to continue these events online. Thank you.
Congratulations also to Canada as well. Really, really great achievements. I think I'm just impressed, and I wish I could be a student maybe during this time. But of course, I mean, there are few things worthwhile mentioning here. The Pharmacy Awareness Month falling into the start of the pandemic, that was an interesting coincidence. And I think this is such a momentum for our profession. I'm sure, I hope you are sharing the same feeling with me. This is such a weird but right moment to be a pharmacist. So, you know, where everywhere was closed, pharmacies were open. And, you know, consider not just a community pharmacy, but, you know, clinics, you know, information specialists, anyone have, you know, you realized yourself as a pharmacist during this time. So I think everybody has a responsibility. All of you have a responsibility to carry this momentum into the next years of your profession, to, you know, to have the pride of being a pharmacist and pharmaceutical scientists. Also, having the socials through wellness and mental health activities is really important because, you know, I'm sure you are missing being in the university and being with your friends, being there in person, you know, having a chat, having a coffee, just maybe, you know, lying down in the you know, backyard of the school. I don't know. These are things I always miss. Even I graduated years ago. So I think having socials and also, you know, doing this for the mental health, good health and well-being is really important. So congratulations. I think these are really, really great activities from all of you. Well done. Is there any reflection from the panelists on what you've heard, or anything you wanted to add that you kind of feel inspired that, you know, you would want to do the same in your country? No? Okay. I mean, I think I talked a lot on behalf of everyone. I think just a really inspiring activities. Congratulations. So we'll continue our next question, which is a combined question. So here we wanted to hear a bit more around challenges and concerns about education systems during COVID-19. We discussed a little bit, you have mentioned, all of you have mentioned the challenges that the education system put into, and then how it impacted your fellow students to become a pharmacist, especially in the context of, you know, practicals, experimental courses. So if there is anything you want to share more on that, this is the right time. So let's discuss the challenges, concerns you faced in terms of education system, and then how we can improve them, how we can improve the effectiveness on online remote learning. Can we do that with, you know, modern technologies, more digital tools, or is there other things we can do? Because the interactive part of the education and the practical part of the education have been more heavily affected. So do you have any solution to improve that, or, you know, anything that your school have done and that worked? So we'll continue with this combined question, and then I'll start with Vivian for this question.
Thank you, Nilhan. So during COVID-19, the education systems had to fully move online, and there were little to no opportunities for emotional-based skill development and, I guess, the development of interpersonal skills. As pharmacists and people working in the healthcare system, I believe it is extremely vital to have the skills which allow you to effectively work with people, especially when people are ill, and for you to empathize with them. The students in their 5th year pre-registration or intern year, also known as, may have been affected the most due to the lack of workshops supporting their studies during this year. Students from years 1 to 4 had experimental and practical classes postponed, but were able to make up for them at a later date. So I guess we'll be focusing on intern students here. It would be logical to have online learning platforms in place and assessment checklists to know if these students have met their coursework to a particular standard, and workshops through Zoom can be made interactive through assessments. Zoom can be used as an interactive platform, and using it in conjunction with assessments, students can then fact check their learning progress. However, it would be quite logical to revisit students who did graduate during the pandemic year, just to ensure that their work effectively is as on par and to the same standard as all other pharmacists who have graduated and will graduate later on. In saying this, in the long term, I believe that we should focus on how interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence needs to be improved in pharmacy in general. With the move of all in-person classes to online, I believe that was not supported for at all. And this is an area in pharmacy that does need to be improved in general, and which was only made worse by the pandemic and remote learning. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Vivian. I think you touched upon really important points. We miss the human interaction, and it has some consequences on our, emotional or soft skills, human interaction skills. So that's I mean, it should be tackled before it comes to an alarming point, because we have patients and community at the center of our work. So this is a really important area to look into. And also, as you rightly mentioned, revisiting graduates that graduated during the pandemic to ensure they kind of catch up with what they have missed. I think there will be a significant responsibility for pharmaceutical associations, pharmacy schools, also to individuals to catch up this period with continuous education. So good points. Thank you. I'll continue with Azrena.
Thank you, Nilhan. So private colleges and universities in Malaysia faced financial pressure as enrollment of students were delayed or deferred. And most private universities and colleges in Malaysia rely on receiving student fees to stay afloat. And besides the fear of the pandemic, the looming economic recession will also mean that some parents may struggle financially, and some may not be able to afford tuition fees for their children. So this is a huge challenge, of course. And educators were overwhelmed and unsupported to do their jobs well. They had little or no notice about universities closing and shifting to online learning. And this can be challenging for anybody, not just for them. And students were also negatively affected, of course. The quality of teaching was compromised as students can no longer enjoy the interaction in the lecture halls and tutorial rooms and labs. And the worst form of learning is to sit passively and listen. And this may be the form that most students receive during school, because it's happened in Malaysia as well. And COVID-19 has also widened the disparity between the privileged and the less privileged students. Not every student has access to digital devices or internet connectivity at home. And students from less privileged backgrounds in particular suffered even more. Examinations, which constitute a component of the overall evaluation of students, also had to be postponed or carried out online, which may result in higher levels of dishonesty. Scientific research and classes that require a lab setting were also impacted. Not only may students not be able to graduate on time, they would also have to worry about their finances and prospects of employability. So moving on to the next question, how to improve the effectiveness of online learning. So beyond the short-term measures, the tertiary education industry will have to innovate to thrive in a post-COVID-19 scenario. And many of these measures will need to be supported by the government. And Malaysia's Higher Education Director General has stated a wish to boost digital education post-COVID-19. This has to be complemented with affordable and reliable internet packages and wider coverage in various parts of the country. And as classes move online in the foreseeable future, the government will need to tighten cyber security to defend computers, electronic systems, and networks from malicious attacks. And at the college or university level, educators will need additional training in the use of online teaching tools and recording tools. Above all, universities and colleges will have to allocate additional funding to support the less privileged students. So in Malaysia, many local universities have adopted some form of blended learning this year. They have been utilizing virtual learning environment extensively, which features e-assessments, e-tutoring, e-submissions, e-forums, and many more, which allows students to connect with their lecturers, collaborate with their colleagues, and also take charge of their learning. And I feel that maybe gamification elements may also encourage students to learn even more, because they can earn badges as they complete various steps in their learning process, and it also may make learning more fun. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Great answers. I think I was just taking some notes. I don't know which one to mention. They were all very inspiring, because you approached in a systematic way to education. Yes, the disparities, the inequities in education are now more visible. We were just probably not seeing it before, but now we can see who has the barriers and who doesn't have. So I think it's a human right. So receiving education is a human right. So this is the major issue that has to be addressed at the systematic level. And as students, student associations, schools, pharmaceutical associations, it's our responsibility to speak our words, raise our voice on that. I think this is really important that you have that awareness, even you're a student. So thank you for that. And you mentioned about the innovations that are required in the higher education sector. And I think if you don't innovate, then you're out of the game. So I'm sure everybody is aware of that. And also, digital literacy is an important topic, for the lecturers, for the students, especially for our pharmacy community. And the pedagogy of the existing pedagogy so far of teaching, learning, this is gonna significantly change, and gamification, like you said, or different innovative approaches will come. So we will be, we will just not hope, but we will act on shaping that. And this meeting is one of them, to shape the future of pedagogy, the education and learning. So great insights. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to continue with Ugo.
Well, I think that one of the challenges that is more important is that we have to learn now without the labs. Experience and action is something that will not be learned in virtual way. So it's very important to consider this. Also, in the other hand, we have the economic part. We have some students that also this problem occurs in the private universities. That some university gave them some fee, but it's very little. It's like 3 to 5% of what they pay in a month. So some students have to they don't continue with the career this year because of that economic problems. Also, we have the problems that the internet in Peru is very difficult in the rural parts. So if some university help in that part, but not all the students have that facilities. So moving to the other question, how to improve this effectiveness of offline learning. Well, it will be better if we reformulate the education systems in this moment. Also, to focus more in a way to look the increase of the academic part of the students. Also take advantage of the technology resources such as videos, simulator apps, or more material that will help the students to learn more. Also, I don't know how it will be possible, but if the governments of the country helps the students, it will be better. I think, and I noticed that the governments of the most part of Latin America don't help a lot the students. So it will be better if the government help them.
Thank you, Hugo. I think you raised an important point here, the dropouts. Because of economical challenges, some students have to stop studying, and this is really heartbreaking. It's bad for society. It's bad for pharmacy. It's bad for human development. So this is a major issue also at UNESCO's level. I think inequities in education, dropouts from education. This is a very global challenge that all the countries are facing, including the access to education and internet in rural areas. I know in my country, for example, this is a common challenge as well. So we will raise our voice on these issues through this project. So thanks a lot for raising that. But of course, this is a difficult task. But as you said, the governments have to act on it, because this requires funding. It requires systematical changes. For example, I heard, I guess it might be in Costa Rica, that they have education through television, where where students, there are no schools in rural areas. So even this, some old school solutions may address these long-standing inequities. So thanks a lot for raising these important points. I'll continue with Melissa now.
Thank you. So I believe that the main problem that COVID-19 has brought with regards to pharmacy education is, the decrease in hands-on training that we would normally get. And I know that a lot of people have touched on that. Basically, I think that if we are being delivered this material in an online format, it can't compare to some of the components that you would need to know to be a pharmacist and work in person. Many students have lost practical time and hands-on experiences, either through the cancellations of their placements or rotations, or have not been able to do certain aspects of the curriculum that can't be completed online, such as compounding, or learning how to do physical assessments like blood pressure monitoring or blood glucose, or even having simulated patient interactions that are actually in person, not online. I believe that the lack of hands-on training has definitely impacted the preparation of future pharmacists, because we have lost the time applying our pharmaceutical knowledge. Although we may know the material, if we're unable to apply this knowledge and critically think on our feet and a time crunch and be in those situations, I don't think we'll be able to do so as a pharmacist or in the workforce. With regards to the second half of the question about how we can overcome these problems, I believe that professors should definitely be working on interactive sessions versus recorded lectures, because having the opportunity to ask questions and get clarification helps us retain and understand the information better. As well, incorporation of group work, such as using breakout rooms on Zoom and working in small focus groups, That's something that we have always had a chance to do while in person, because we work with our classmates, we teach each other, and we get feedback from others. And I think that trying to do that in the online format and replicate that, it would be very important. I also think that professors should try and do live question and answer sessions or post discussion forums so that students can, look for clarification on topics, and then professors would also be able to be aware of where students are struggling and what areas that they're struggling on. So I think I touched on this before, but I think that the two-way communication with the professor and the students is really vital to the success of online learning. Thank you.
Thank you. I think two-way communication, you mentioned there is the student lecture interaction, but student interaction is also really important. For example, today you're able to hear your fellow panelists from different countries, so this engagement is also really important in terms of having different views, and also group works, focus discussion, again like this one. It's really important. So I think these are quick wins, and this can be achieved just with a little bit of organization. So I'll also encourage all of you to take some leads to support your schools and your lecturers to facilitate this kind of group discussions. You also have a role in that. Don't expect everything from, we have a saying in Turkish, don't expect everything from the government. So also do your bit and support your lecturers, your students. You can take some lead because you are all really talented. I'll continue with Enes now.
Thank you. So I can say that in the beginning of the pandemic, we had many challenges and concerns about the education systems. Talking about the internet connections here in Iraq, the connections are very bad here, and they are not in a like fast connections. So not all, but many parts of the students had connection issues sometimes during the webinars, the meetings that the lecturers were doing for like clarifying the lectures. So the internet connections was a challenging one for taking the lectures, especially some of the students were living in villages, and they couldn't get the good internet connections for attending the meetings and the webinars. So I can say that it was a very challenging and a trouble for some part of the students, and they couldn't get the lectures in a good way. And we had examples. We like during the workshops and during the meetings that the teachers were doing, some of the students were leaving the Zoom meeting because the internet connection was very low. So it was a very challenging one about the internet connection, and also about the method for providing the lectures. The method was online, and people here and the students wasn't used to get them online. It was a good experience, not bad, but I can say that it will be better if we take the lectures offline and in person, because it will be more interactive, and we can get the lectures and the information more clearly. And also we couldn't ask our questions in a good way, because the teachers required us to write emails, and writing emails is not that good way for providing all of your clarifications and questions regarding the subject. And to improve the effectiveness of online learning, I can say that we can work on improving the quality and the system and the mechanism of the methods for providing the online lectures. For example, Zoom meetings and the different platforms for dividing and providing the meetings can be worked on and can develop. And especially talking about internet connections, we need a platform that uses a very low internet connection because in these countries we don't have a very fast internet connection. So this was our main trouble regarding the pandemic period. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answers. I think you also mentioned the challenges around, emails is a one-way communication. Melissa has mentioned. This is a one-way communication. So the students need interaction. They have to, to be able to, answer and ask a question and receive the answer in contrary. So the two-way communication or multiple ways of communication is really important. So that's an important point to tackle to increase the effectiveness. So thank you for that. We'll finish this question with Basant.
Yes, so the thing that is challenging for everyone, and everyone mentioned it most of the times, is the practical part of pharmacy. So it's a balance between having the students being exposed, which is what healthcare education is all about, and protecting the students. So it was challenging for everyone, and not having the training would have affected the pharmacy education in a bad way. The other challenges that were all mentioned by all the other panelists are the employments. So the licensing exam was postponed, and hence the employments were a little bit hasty. Not everyone could go through the process in the appropriate way that would have happened any other year. Also, the healthcare institutions were a little bit busy to recruit other people now. They want to focus on what's happening, not on training new recruits. The inequity, we didn't have it so much here from the part of the accessibility to like devices and all that stuff, but from the internet connection part, it had a lot of bad effects, especially during online exams. Also, the mental health, researchers everywhere have mentioned how much health students are one of the most people that are affected and suffer from mental health problems. So having this stress added to that was like a huge challenge during this time. And I think that's the most part that were like affected here, like challenges. If I'm thinking about what kind of like solutions, like a short-term solutions for now at least, there is the flipped class approach, which we used here in our college, and it was really beneficial, in which students came to the lecture prepared, and they are the one who give the lecture, and the professor is there to facilitate the lecture only. So when this approach was used, we overcome the problem of being like sitting in front of a computer, hearing a professor teaching is not fun at all, and you don't focus, and you end up scrolling and opening other websites. So it helped us a lot in like being attentive in the lectures. Also, one thing that didn't happen but needs to happen everywhere is the changing of the curriculum. From the curriculum that was used in a lecture-based offline cannot be the same. You cannot use the same approach and put it in an online lecture, and that's it. Curriculums need to be modified and tackled in a way that can be used during online systems. And of course, what was mentioned a couple of times, also the accessibility. So we reached the time during university days where we knock the door of the professor's office and say, hey, professor, I need you right now. But this is not accessible right now. So emails, phone calls, whatever would make it accessible, but accessibility to instructors or teacher assistants, or whoever the students will need, is really important and essential at this time. I think this is the short term, or at least what we can do right now to overcome the current, like, this time until we know what we're doing exactly. That's it.
Thank you, Basant. I think you raised really important points about, you know, the employability or employment, sorry, and that, you know, healthcare institutions are focusing on, you know, putting out the fire rather than, you know, training new employees. This is a workforce challenge. I think we approached the workforce challenges from many aspects. So at least the continuous education part or onboarding part in terms of education is going to have some impact. I completely understand that, and that the students were, in terms of the solutions, students being involved in the lectures, delivering the lecture, or, you know, having presentations. This interactive part is really important. It's a very easy, you know, thing to do. So, you know, when the best way for you to learn something is to do it. So, you know, you give the lecture, so it's great. And definitely I think the curriculum has, I mean, this is a message that we were always giving as FIP, for example, the need for, you know, transforming education through curriculum, through the content, through the delivery processes, through the assessment processes. So this is a major push that, you know, we all probably capitalize on in the coming years in our old institutions. And, you know, accessibility to your lecturers, this is I think this is an important leadership attitude that, you know, all lecturers should obtain. I know they all have massive time, but having your students at the center of your work is really important. Perhaps again, this could be a responsibility for student associations to organize some catch up with, you know, maybe some departments time to time, you know, just to have a, you know, informal or formal chat in around, you know, modules or, you know, topics in general. So this could be also an interesting way to, you know, for student associations to catch up. So great suggestions from all of you. Thank you for your vision. I'll ask again the same question if you have any input, comment, suggestion, or any, you know, inspiring points that you want to share with others, other panelists. Okay then, so we'll continue with our final question. And at our final question, I think this is more like a, you know, compilation of what we all have discussed, and then diluting this into a proposal, solution, or solutions for the development of pharmaceutical education during and after COVID-19, based on the experience we all gain, we have all gained during the pandemic. So is there any, you know, wider solution you want to share to support the futures of education? So for that, I'm going to start with Ugo.
Okay. One of the maybe solution that I can make about the problem that we have with we are not having laboratories is that we have to maybe an organization or something create a simulator, a free simulator without something will help students to learn more. That simulator can help them. We have the technology to do it. We have the artificial intelligence to make that things. So the technology exists. We can make and it's going to be very useful for them. Also, we have to remind that we don't know how or when it's going to finish in this pandemic. We know that actually some countries are again in the lockdown, so we have to stay safe to take care our grandparents or our family, right? So that's.
Thank you, Hugo. Actually, while you have mentioned simulation, this was something that we tackled as FIP And what we have done is to, we collected some speakers that have converted their lab classes into virtual one-to-one simulations. So I just quickly check, but now that I'm facilitating the session, I'm just going to send a link to everyone from the chat where we have recordings of our COVID-19 related sessions. Here, if you scroll down and do a little bit of research, you're going to find our remote lab webinar. Also, there are much more webinars there. You can have access to them freely, and feel free to share this with your students. So please watch that. We have had, I think, 4 or 5 webinars since the pandemic started around online education, laboratory, online lab classes. And I'm sure this might give some inspiration for those solutions. So take a look if you have time to. So I'm going to continue with Melissa now.
So for going forward and thinking about the development of pharmacy education after the COVID-19 pandemic and just education in general as a whole, I think that the pandemic has increased our accessibility and our to experts and speakers that we would not have generally had the opportunity to learn from in the past. This year in one of my classes, as an example, we had speakers come in that from like the Schizophrenia Society of Canada and speak patients who have previously struggled with addictions to supplement our mental health lectures. So now with everything being on an online format and increased awareness about using virtual platforms, I think that we can utilize this when going forward with education, because we now have access and the means to be able to get the best people in the best areas to supplement our education. So I think that's something that we should consider moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think, yes, I mean, we all benefited from this source of accessibility, and I think everybody is also accessible. I think this is a both way situation. People want to be accessed as well because they have things to offer. So leveraging these kind of connections, and also thinking out of the box, because you engage with a patient community. That's also an interesting engagement. So I think this is a time to think out of the box with whom you can work. I'll also have particular suggestion. While we will speak more about digital health in the coming years. We have been talking, but now the practice also is being transformed into digital health. So this is a multidisciplinary area. So also explore working with technologists, experts out of healthcare who have developed the digital health tools themselves. That could be an interesting area for student associations and pharmacy schools to explore as well. So I'm going to continue with Basant.
Yeah. So I think I will add to what already was started talking about with artificial intelligence and virtual reality and simulations. So I've been reading a lot about it, and it is starting to happen in pharmacy education, and it needs to be like focused more. So we may have around four areas that we would like to see in simulation, like pharmacy counseling. It's really easy to get the patient or a simulation for a patient to do the counseling online. Also, the physical exam, as we mentioned, it's not very accessible right now. The pharmaceutical labs, which is a huge problem of doing the experiments. And I think we can add to the part where it's already mentioned about gamification. So I think going with the labs in a game way would really help to understand the experiment in a better way. And also the case-based learning, it would really be beneficial if it happened. I've myself practiced some simulation for case-based learning, where you go through the steps of a patient and what happened and what next step and how do you go with it. So I think the next step in every part in the whole world, and everything is artificial intelligence. So pharmacy education should take the same lead with that. And in addition to what I've talked about the curriculums changing and modification should be on the long run. It's not only a short-term solution. It should be on the long run to keep up to date.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think now that we are emphasizing our messages a little bit more overtly, and these will be key takeaways for the way forward from this session. I already have lots of to-dos in my mind to work with IPSF on some topics, and especially, for example, you know, the issue around providing opportunities for everyone around different learning opportunities. For example, there are schools that have developed simulations. How can this be reached out to other universities that they don't have the you know, opportunity to do that? That will be kind of our mission this year. So thanks a lot for raising that. I'll continue with Enes.
Many good things they have been talking about regarding the solutions, and I will also focus on the virtual reality and using the technologies to like provide a simulator for the students to experience the laboratories that they couldn't do it in person. I would just add that we can combine the online and offline methods for providing another solution. For example, when we had like a terrible situation, we were used to take some of the lectures offline and some of them online. Most of them were, of course, online, but we were used to take of them offline some parts when the situation went better. So combination of the offline and online methods will be also a good solution for providing like a better education system and providing the lectures in a more interactive way. That was all to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this links to what you have said in the beginning, that you know, there was the online system that was not working, then it started working because of, you know, the pandemic, and now having hybrid ways of education for the future is gonna probably remove some inefficiencies, and also, you know, ensure the face-to-face interaction still remains, as we have the human part of things. So I think this is really the future, and I hope we'll get there as soon as possible. And I'll continue with Vivian.
Thanks, Nilhan. So I like what Melissa had mentioned. I guess in Australia, I've also seen that a solution during the pandemic was having more professionals and specialists speaking on their specific fields and offering a more in-depth, I guess, knowledge and education on their fields to students. I've had professionals speaking on mental health to students to offer support during the swift change from offline to now online learning. And I guess this gave us information that we wouldn't have received in person or from our normal university lecturers. I'd also say that in the long term, I'd propose a further focus on the development of interpersonal and emotional skills, as I believe we were all disadvantaged as a whole in this specific area, as a lot of these skills are, you know, taught or learned in person and gained from speaking to people and having human interactions, which, you know, usually you experience on even your own placements. So I guess we were all disadvantaged in this area by the pandemic, and so moving to I guess having some online workshops, but then having supplementary workshops in the future when things are able to go back to normal. This would help all pharmacists and pharmacy students and graduates with best practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. I think you have mentioned many of the areas your fellow panelists have mentioned, and I think what stands out is the interpersonal and emotional skills that needs to be boosted. I think this is going to be a kind of $1 million question for all of us, to see how we can feel like we are connected while we are far away from each other. And because for example, I mean, maybe I'm sitting here with my pajamas, but you don't see. So these kind of things are essential for human interaction. So we will try to, I'm sure, I mean, there are creative minds out there, and we'll also, feed into that process with our thinking to come up with solutions. So maybe, I don't know, we'll all have our holograms or avatars one day. I don't know, the future is near, so we'll see this kind of ways in the future. So last but not least, I'll finish with Alserena.
Thank you, Nilhan. So as education systems around the world cope with this crisis, we must also be thinking of how we can recover stronger with a renewed sense of responsibility. So first of all, technologies used for online learning should be free and available to teachers and students, including the less privileged students. And online learning can be utilized in the best way possible when technologies such as digital simulations, digital field trips, and other AI tools are made open and accessible to all. So we need to increase efforts to enable cost-free use and adaptation of technology. And it will also be very interesting to see AI tools where we can communicate with patients directly, because in pharmacy it's very crucial to have empathy, and it's quite difficult to practice interpersonal skills as well via online. So hopefully we have AI tools that can overcome this problem in the future. And aside from technology, scientific literacy must also be ensured in the curriculum. In this age where misinformation is rampant, especially about COVID-19, many people are in denial of scientific information. So this must be addressed at schools and universities so we can combat false information and improve education. Like in Malaysia, we have a lot of WhatsApp channels and Telegram channels that spread a lot of false information, and a lot of people actually believe this information. And when they listen to information given by doctors and pharmacists, they start to doubt what they believe and understand. So this is very important for the future of our education. And lastly, solidarity must be increased to combat inequality. Institutions and governments need to increase support for less privileged students. More people must have access to high quality early childhood education. And we must all have a better understanding and a sense of urgency of the need to close the gap in opportunities, and assure that everyone has the same chances to a quality education. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Enough said, I think, Alserena, what you've mentioned. Solidarity, support, leaving no one behind. These are some key themes we all have been working around the clock. So thanks for emphasizing that. And I also want to support you raised around the issue around the infodemics. For example, vaccine hesitancy. We all are seeing this as a realistic case. Everybody's questioning vaccines right now. It's a major task for pharmacists, pharmacy students, all of us to work on that. For example, in my country, there is a group dedicated for combating the infodemic. So they release weekly newsletters on the that week's misconceptions or conspiracy theories. So there are these kind of achievements why pharmacy doesn't own one. So perhaps that could be something that can be explored. So before we finish, I'll first open the mini floor for discussion. If you have any insights, any inspirations you want to share from with each other. If not, before we close, first I'm gonna ask if we have any questions from our participants, if you know anything the participants would like to add. Also, if there are questions from Facebook, I'll ask organizers to put into the chat or read those as well. So we'll also cover their questions. Any questions to the panelists? Anything else that we should, discuss? I think that was a really great conversation. I really didn't understand how the time passed by. So if there are no questions, what I'm going to mention now is that the slide you're seeing on the screen and the links that are shared from the chat box are some links related to the Futures of Education project, and there are a couple of opportunities here for you to engage more. There is a survey. You can contribute with a thought piece from you, and you can also, if you have creative juices, you can also submit an original artwork through the links that are shared in the chat. So feel free to engage this project further. Your voice has to be heard at the global level, and this is an opportunity for you. Before I close with some conclusion remarks, I'm going to ask each panelist for a final message of support to your fellow pharmacy students, because we finished with the message of solidarity. I think this is really important. So I'm going to ask Enes first to start with a message of support to pharmacy students all around the world.
First of all, thank you so much again for your contributions, for developing and preparing the education system to be better for providing the information that the pharmacy students need. I would say that we would need to continue and to prepare ourselves more and to take the courses and develop ourselves in a better way. And the system is going to be changed in very many ways. So we need to get used to these changes and to prepare ourselves and to develop our professional and scientific backgrounds, to have better background on the technology, and also to interact with the lectures and the informations more scientifically, and also to use all of the available platforms and tools for interacting with our lectures, with our labs, and to use them carefully. So I wish all the best for the pharmacy students all around the world, and I wish them success in their exams and in their education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Enes. I think this is a great demonstration of a growth mindset. So congratulations for embodying that mindset in your message. So thanks. Basant, I'll continue with you.
Okay, so I'll start with what my professor said in my first year in pharmacy education. He told us to thrive and never survive. So I'd like to tell every pharmacy student and every student around the world that this is the hardest time, and being a student in this time, I've experienced it only for one semester, but I know it's a struggle. But just keep doing it as much as you can. Learn from the crisis. So opportunities are born from crisis. Better develop yourself. And I'm pretty sure, and I'm telling you, as I'm coming from the future, a pharmacist who get their education during this time will be someone who will overcome and will be resilient enough to overcome anything that comes later on in their professional life. Mm-hmm. I hope that we won't see anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that this will be enough for you as a training material for all of your life. Thank you for this great session, and thank you all for your attending, and thank you for organizing this wonderful session.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think, Basant, this was a great, inspiring message. Also linking with what your professor said. And I think, yes, I think we strong pharmacists will grow out of this period. I mean, whether you're a first-year student or you are, you know, in your 10th year in your career, everybody has their own learnings, and I think being a health professional comes with some extra responsibility and challenges. So we take that challenge, and this is another challenge that we'll all, you know, welcome with a hug, and then, you know, include this as a part of our life. So thanks for showing that resilience already. Vivian, how about your message?
Thank you, Nilhan, for, I guess I'd say, facilitating such an interactive and informative session. For my message of support, I would just like to say that I hope everyone can find their pace during this time, and I'd encourage all pharmacy students and even pharmacists to stay in touch with their own association. So pharmacy students getting in touch with the IPSF in their home region, and to get involved and reach out for support if needed. And thank you for having me speak today, and I hope everyone takes care of themselves very well. Thanks.
Thank you, Vivian. I think that's not enough to mention again and again that the connection and support each other has never been so important. So create time and space in your day, structure your day to have some human interaction, to, you know, at least see someone from the virtual world, just, you know, to stay connected to the real world. This is important to, you know, consciously creating time and effort to that. So thanks for that. I'll continue with Asrina.
Thank you very much, Nilhan. So a message to everyone is you don't always have to be productive, and slowing down doesn't mean you won't achieve what you want to achieve. Always prioritize your mental health. This is something I've learned throughout this pandemic. And overall, I hope to see the education sector unite, forge connections across countries and continents, and share what works in a global way. And despite our differences, we are actually much more united than divided. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and to everyone, take care and stay healthy.
Thank you, Asrina. Great solidarity message from you as well. Thanks for pointing that out again. And I'll go to Hugo.
Okay. Well, I want to say to all the students of pharmacy that are watching this that we know that it is hard. It's a challenge for everybody. We all have learned new things. We all have learned new techniques. I want to say them to invest in yourself, stay safe, enter to new webinars. The knowledge is open for everybody. So invest in yourself and stay safe. Thank you very much for this opportunity with all of you. Nice to meet you all, and thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. Nice to meet you all too. I think it was a privilege to have this discussion with all of you today. So I'll finish up with Melissa.
Thank you, Nilhan, for facilitating this session. It was great to work with you guys all for this session, and thank you to the organizers. I think you guys did a fantastic job. If I was going to give a message to any pharmacy students watching, I would say to continue having these types of conversations. Continue with them, like within their associations and with their professors and their faculties, because these are the conversations we need to move education forward. And one piece of advice I guess I have is just to make sure that you make time for things that make you happy, because you need to be able to care for yourself if you're going to be caring for your patients. So thank you.
Yes, actually, yeah, self-care starts at home, I think. So thanks for that message, Melissa. So I wanted to wrap up with some final remarks. Just, you know, I'm an AVE with the discussion has gone through yesterday and today with both the groups. Thanks for your powerful messages. So, you know, we'll wrap up in a higher spirit today's session. Also, you know, if I can give a message from my side, is really, you know, be aware of your power and take responsibility and leadership in things, because, you know, we received a lot of messages from today. Take ownership of some of them. Don't think I'm a student, you know, I don't think, you know, I can change anything. Never have that mindset. Don't put a limit on yourself. If you have a solution, then own the solution and, you know, be the leader of it. I think everybody is a leader in their own capacity. So I'm sure anyone on this call, all the participants have that mindset and skill. So I want to sincerely thank to all of you, my panelists today, for sharing their fantastic visions on the future of pharmacy and pharmaceutical science education. And also I want to thank all our participants joining us from all around the world. For some of you, the time zones have been inconvenient. So thanks a lot for, you know, staying alert and awake to conduct this interesting discussion, very lively discussion. We have seen common disparities to tackle, that we need to tackle, and we see common solutions that we can address these challenges. So we have a brighter future for our education. The best way of having common solutions is that it's gonna make it easier if we have a common solution, so we can implement this at a global scale. So really congratulate IPSF for being the platform of solutions at a global scale. FIP will take into account all the solutions, and we're gonna work with IPSF and hopefully UNESCO to implement these solutions. We are gonna take our responsibility in this discussion as FIP to represent our profession. And I hope we are leaving you today with some enthusiasm and insights on tackling some of the challenges on pharmacy and pharmaceutical science education in your country, in your region, or even in the world. So I'm gonna hand over to Merve, and congratulations for, you know, excellently constructed questions. It was a great discussion, and I wish everyone safe and enjoyable holiday season and a happy and healthy 2021. Thank you very much. Over to you, Merve.
Thank you, Nilhan, for this final lovely speech. And I would like to thank our amazing representatives for their great contributions. It was a pleasure to work with you all. And thanks to our wonderful facilitator and our note taker for their efforts during the session, and to Karima for being such an amazing teammate while organizing this session. Thanks to our other participants for their interest in our session, and I hope it was enjoyable and also informative. As I said earlier, the International Commission of UNESCO will carefully consider the inputs through this session and release a global report in 2021. Also, this session was recorded, and you can see the IPSF YouTube channel for the recording. And we came to the end of this session. I hope it was like you expected. Thank you for your participation, and I would like to say that in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.